I'm glad to hear that that much hasn't changed. But of course, one thing that has changed strictly business is recruiting. Of course, you don't need to give me too much. People need to tune into power as far as that goes. But what do you look for in a strictly business recruit? And is there maybe anybody out there that's caught your eye or you're considering as a potential recruit? I know you've brought in some people to the NWA before. I know you've got a little bit of pull on that. And who's Nick Aldis got his eye on?
Well, look, here's the thing. Strictly Business was a group that was kind of born out of my real life friendship with Tom Latimer, and obviously my my association with Camille, and then they fell in love and developed their own real life romance.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, look at this, it's worked out great, and so it's kind of like I said, it makes sense for us to be a group because we all look out for each other's back. Like we're all going to be, and we all know. And I think this is one of the reasons why, for the most part, I think I'd like to say I have the respect of most of the guys, on the roster, is that I am strictly business. Like, if it's good for the company, if it's gonna help like move us along, like I'm gonna do it.
Yeah.
As long as it doesn't hurt me, and that's okay too.
Yeah.
Like I was having this conversation yesterday with a friend of mine who's in NXT,
mm-hmm.
where I said, somewhere along the line, people have sort of manipulated this, this narrative that it's wrong to sort of look out for yourself. And I'm like, no, it's absolutely necessary to look out for yourself. That's why we're independent contractors. Like, no, I'm not saying you have to be difficult. I'm just saying you have to, of course you're thinking of yourself. Like you're your business product, like if you have, and I'm in the retail business, it's like, if I'm like my sports nutrition company, my supplement company, legacysubs.com, we're in the process right now. We're having some conversations with some major retailers, and at some point that the conversation is going to shift to like positioning on the shelves and like how are you guys going to, and it's like no one's sitting there going like, oh, he's not a team player, like he's not just happy to be in the store. I'm going to come back. Hey, why is my shit like on the on the top shelf in the back corner? Like, put my shit in the middle. You know what I mean? Like, and it's the same. It's business. Like everyone should be vying to be like, I want to be in the main event. Like, I want to be the world champion. Like, hey, and I'm sitting there going, hey, I want you to try to be in because it helps make me better. Because I don't want you to take over my spot. And it's like, there's nothing wrong with that. Like it's not a popularity contest based on like who's the nicest to the fans on the internet. You know what I mean? Or like who's the one who deserves it the most. Like the guy who deserves it the most is the guy who's going to help pull the wagon the best.
Yeah. Like you said before, like the guy that pulls that wagon eventually does pull everybody along with them, right? A rising tide raises all boats.
Right. And so in that respect, like that's how Strictly Business kind of was formed, because it was like, Tom Latimer is, we're going back to that dreaded overrated and underrated term. Like Tom Latimer is quite, in my opinion, is the most undervalued talent in the entire industry. Yeah. This guy, like, he's got everything. He is the total package, and like he works circles around guys making 10 times the money he makes. And there's nothing, and so for me, it's like, I want to take him and be like, if I can help light that fire into him and be like, you're considered a top guy in this business.
Yeah.
I'm going to do that because the business needs him. Yeah. We all like whoever I recognize as like the best guy, like some people look at it as like, oh, that's competition. Like, let's, eliminate him, just cut him off. Or if you're thinking about, like, if you're confident in who you are and you're comfortable in yourself, you look at that guy and go, this guy needs to be, we need to get this guy, like, on
to the proverbial moon.
Because, because it's going to help the rest of us. Like, you know, so as far as other people, you know, I've mentioned a few times that I think that Joe Hennig would be a good fit for the NWA.
Great.
And I think he's a guy that was presented in a way that was not certainly not representative of what he offers. Certainly not representative of his incredible lineage.
Yep.
And again,
it's a very good way to put it.
Where we talk about our values, legacy, tradition, you know, we more than respect our elders. We revere them, you know, and so for a guy who's part of one of the greatest wrestling lineages of all time, hey man, you know, he could have a jacket, he could earn a jacket. And like, look, let's talk about Chris Adonis. Look, I've known Chris for a long time. I first worked with him in India 10 years ago.
Oh, very cool.
I found him to be, you know, insufferable when I first met this guy. I was like, God, who is this guy? He's like a complete goof. He's so aloof. He's like the loudmouth, you know, jock, like just not my cup of tea at all. I get to another guy and I just go, no, that's just his nature. He's just, but here's another guy, and I can relate to this. He got a massive opportunity at WWE, got pushed so young, and was not, you know, just was not polished and was not finished yet. Didn't have enough reps. It just wasn't ready. And people were just sort of written him off. Oh, you know, he's excellent. You know, it's like he was in his early 20s when he was there. Are you kidding me? Like, look at the median age of the WWE roster now. Yeah. Like, most of the champions are like over 40, which is, you know, kind of funny when you consider, you know, Mickey's release and all that. You know, it's like, but that's another story for another day. But the point is the maturity, you know, as a performer in this business comes like late 30s, early 40s. Like throughout history, the best, you know, every now and then there's an exception. You know, there are major anomalies. You know, The Rock, Brock Lesnar, Randy Orton. You know, and there are others. Shawn Michaels. You know, but for the most part, the guys are doing their best work in their late 30s, early 40s because they've found themselves. They've got respect. They've got a gravitas to them. They've got a maturity to them. They look like grown men. They're people that, you know, that appeal across the board to children and adults alike, you know, and it's the sweet spot for wrestling. And for whatever reason, people have sort of co-opted that and tried to compare it to real sports.
Yeah.
like what's the big problem? Like, what's the major problem with, you know, like why these young guys, you know, but they're not getting a push because they're not ready. Yeah. That's you know, they're not getting a push because they've got 3 years experience. And do you have any idea how much experience you need to be fucking good at this? It's a lot. I've worked with, you know, a who's who of wrestling, and I didn't even begin to find myself until I hit 30. And by the time I hit 30, I'd wrestled Sting, AJ Styles, Samoa Joe, Bobby Roode, you know, Kurt Angle. Like,
you said it best. A who's who.
Yeah.